Christ. And so then he gets into the whole dispensation concept of the confusion and chaos of our own cognition. When he moves us from that, he gets there into now what's called those governmental books in the epistemology, but you move from them into the pastoral books and the training books. And I am hurrying and abridging because I don't want to bore y'all. And so then you get into the pastoral training books and the litany books of teaching, where you get into Galatians and Ephesians, Timothy and Titus and Philippians and Philemon, and gets into those critical books that deal with the structure of how to handle the protocol and the bureaucratic clarity of the gospel of litany, bishops and deacons and pastors and elders. And then Paul slips into now a revelational book, which actually there is some controversy as to whether or not he's written the book. But the Christology of Hebrews lets us lean towards the Apostle Paul because of the tonal quality of the book. The tone of Hebrews sounds like Paul. And you will note that everybody that does a certain speech or a certain talk, they are identified by their sound. This is why Rynell is in trouble now for trying to emulate my sound and trying to make it seem as if that was me. Because there's a certain way, there's a certain string about you. There's a certain way you string clauses and phraseology that make you who you are. There's some stuff that's quintessentially you. And when people hear it, they say, oh, that's my girl, so-and-so. And when you hear certain things, like, that's my dude, I know him, I know who that is, because it sounds like them. And so Hebrews sounds like Paul. Are y'all hearing me? And when Paul starts talking in Hebrews, he starts talking that revelational clarity. So he enters us into an interesting conversation, because he opens the conversation with a part that we often confuse. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 1, I'm now in my text. All of that was pretext. So then in verse number 1, he says this to you. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for. I feel like preaching here today. Faith is the substance. Everybody say it. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, as the evidence of things not seen. But here's the problem with this. When you deal with what God is saying, you have to deal, Chanel, with the concept of that they move in this scripture with the misnomer of one word, because the one word in this text causes us to treat faith like we should not treat faith. Because Pastor Tanya, he says now faith is, and the minute he says is, he now implies to us that the word is about to be defined. Because whenever we hear is, we're tempted to pull into definition. Whenever something says something is, you think we're getting ready to define it. I have a problem with that. It can't possibly be a definition. My problem is you can't define faith, because in order to define anything, you have to be able to clarify and, if you will, establish the parameters of when that thing began and when it ends. Anything that can be defined has to fit within the parameters of a governmental dictated measurable clarity. That's the only way you can define it. You've got to be able to measure it. How can you measure faith when faith was here before here was here? And so then how can I define faith that was here before here was here? So to try to define faith in here when faith is beyond here doesn't make any sense. The truth of it, this is why you run into problems, because when you try to define faith, you're trying to explain to people why you just believe. If you really get someone who is antagonistic, they keep asking, well, why? Well, why? Well, why? Until you finally get to the true resolution of faith and you say, I just believe. God help me. I'm not going to debate with you about Darwin's theory of relativity. I'm not going to deal with you about the evolutional trait of how we got here. I just believe in the beginning God. And because I believe it, then that gives me power in it. And so then faith is not a definition, but faith is a description. God, I love you. Faith can only be described, because all you can talk about is what faith does. As a matter of fact, somebody in here is getting ready to have faith, and you're going to change your future tonight. The problem with us is not our lack of power or our lack of idiom or academic in the word. The problem is our belief system. The devil is not trying to just attack your money. He's not trying to just attack your relationship. The devil wants